To this. One kick of the ball by Didier Drogba. Yeah, it's the greatest night in Chelsea history. Champions of Europe at last.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blue Stand YouTube channel. Firstly, I'm really sorry I couldn't make the last episode. Apologies to Tom. It was a good show. I ended up watching it the next day. And before we start this new one, we've also got another special guest again. Just before I introduce our special guest, guys, please hit the like button. If you're here already, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Help this channel grow up to 500. Well, I think it's very close to 400 already. We're trying to go for the 500. So help us build that, and you've got all the other social media links below for all, for all the Blue Stand platforms that we have. So without further ado, guys, today we've got one of my special friends, not even a guest. I've known him for a very, very long time now, and I thoroughly enjoy talking to him. I'm pretty sure the boys, Amir and Kunal, just as usual, the panelists that we have, they also talk to Jay quite a lot. And I'm so happy to have him. He's an absolute intellect. First of all, Jay, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. I'm excited to finally be here. I've seen some of the other videos of some other people that I know online, so I'm excited to be on finally.
Brilliant, man, brilliant. All right, let's get this show started because we've got quite a lot of things to talk about, and we want to get things done quick. So first of all, the whole lineup situation in regards to the Liverpool Chelsea game. I'm not going to go through the whole lineup, but specifically what I want to ask you is, once again, there was no Callum Hudson-Odoi, and once again, we've seen Mason Mount, not in the left side this time, but on the right side of the wing. So the question I have for you is, how do you feel about that situation, knowing you've got a natural winger sitting in the bench, but we are still giving the opportunity to someone like Mason Mount, who I feel is getting hurt being in the wings, and his game is far more superior in the midfield. How do you feel about that?
I don't mind it necessarily. I was actually more annoyed that Giroud didn't play. I thought I would have liked Hudson-Odoi to start because I think he deserves that chance. But I thought throughout the game, the biggest issue was that when Werner's peeling off the last man to make those runs, there's no one that's reading his game quick enough to play the pass early. And I felt that Giroud would have been the man to unlock that, because we all know historically he's got that skill that sets him apart from other target men. Hudson-Odoi, I think he should have started. I think Mount's integral to the press, and obviously the formation is quite fluid. It's not particularly rigid, so he's not always out on the wing, and he contributes a lot to the press and the play. But I don't know. I think Hudson-Odoi, he should have started, but it's quite hard to get in over Mount at this time, I think.
Do you think perhaps, and I've said this quite a few times, that if we have to play Mason Mount, could we have not adjusted the formation a little bit? Let's say, for example, instead of having Jorginho, let's have a Kante, Kovacic, and Mason Mount sort of midfield, but then still have the ability to, I suppose, include Callum Hudson-Odoi or Olivier Giroud to compensate for the whole situation?
Yeah, I think so. I think last season Pep at City played with David Silva as a false nine occasionally, and I quite like Havertz being in that position as well. And that would accommodate a lot of midfield fluidity as well. So sort of on the team sheet, it looks like Mount would be a winger or Werner would be a winger, when actually they're all sort of interchanging and playing different positions. And I think if you want to get the best out of the talent on the pitch, then you could have sort of Kante, Kovacic playing slightly deeper roles, and then have four others, whoever they may be, sort of floating and interchanging, and that might be the most successful way of integrating those players in together.
I mean, last question before I pass you on to Amir. What understanding do you kind of get that why Frank kind of chose that lineup? I mean, we've talked about the different variations that we could have had. What do you think Frank specifically went for that lineup to combat? What was he trying to combat, I suppose?
I think with with Jorginho and Kovacic, they're obviously people that break a press in slightly different ways. Kovacic, he's clearly able to beat 2-3 players quite comfortably. Jorginho, when the passes come off, he's able to break the press with one pass, and that's really helpful. So it's kind of fighting fire with fire in a slightly different way, because Liverpool's line was so high. You have Timo Werner peeling off because he's obviously going to get in behind Trent, and Trent can't catch him. I don't think anyone's going to catch Timo Werner. Mount's pressing ability means that you can sort of combat the high line on the so Chelsea right, Liverpool left, and sort of attack Robertson there, and can take and sit quite deep, because you know that Liverpool are going to play with their fullbacks near the halfway line, which gives you a chance to break. And if you have Jorginho, he's capable of picking a pass through that Werner might latch onto. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen, and you saw Henderson play what you'd expect a Jorginho pass to be. But I can kind of understand why that is the case. But I think it maybe was a bit naive from Frank to put certain players out there. I think Giroud would have been the one I would have definitely played. Yes.
Fair enough. Amir, off to you, my man.
Yeah, I think first of all, Jay, it's a delight to have you here. I've seen you on Mrs. YouTube channel, I think, before, and then I've also heard you on a lot of podcasts with Dammy. So I think that you're really great and you're a level-headed guest to have. So
Thanks,
especially after last night's defeat, I think a lot of people would let their emotions get the better of them and lash out and unnecessarily criticize players. But you're not that type of guy, so I think the perfect guest to have. Exactly.
Oh, thank you, boys.
I wouldn't mind a little bit of lashing out though.
maybe in a minute.
yeah. We're getting there because now we're addressing the elephant in the room, and that is Kepa Arrizabalaga. I think that a lot of people. We did let Kunal get this question because he would have bashed.
I specifically did that.
Exactly. We did not let Kunal get this question, but yeah, I think that Kepa. There's nothing left to say really. Do you think he's played his last match with Chelsea, especially with Edouard Mendy so close to completion right now?
I actually don't think he's played his last game. I think somehow he'll still play sometimes. I do actually worry about him in terms of his mental health must be taking an absolute battering at the moment, which is sort of the darker side of what happens on social media. Because when we saw Havertz talking about his move to Chelsea, he had seen lots of comments from fans on his Instagram and Twitter, and all of us know here what it's like to be on social media. And I'm not one personally to take any hate. Personally, that's not how I am, but some people are, and Kepa's clearly a confidence player that has no confidence, and every mistake he makes just looks like it's wearing him down even more. And it is a shame, because originally I quite liked him. I still like him. I just don't think he's right for Chelsea anymore. I think the confidence is too low, and the ability just isn't working. I still believe there's a good keeper in there, but I'm not sure it's a Champions League level goalkeeper, and I'm not sure maybe it's best for him to be in England now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that after this, do you see him making it to Chelsea? I think you answered that question, but no chance.
No chance.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's done. I think even if you have a below average goalkeeper, they're going to perform better than what Kepa's done over the last 18 months.
Yeah, so I think funny you should mention that. Do you think it would have been better to start Caballero in this match? Because I think so many people, just because they don't want a 38, 39-year-old goalkeeper, to play for us, they put Kepa in the lineup ahead of Caballero. But do you think that if we'd played Caballero in that lineup, probably then we would have lost only just one goal? I mean, it's all hypothetical anyway. But we've seen Kepa make two mistakes, right? Even in the Brighton game, I think Trossard's shot was pretty easily savable. So I think that, do you think that probably playing Caballero might have had, could have, at least leveled the playing field a bit? Because with Kepa, it's basically a negative impact, right? And with Caballero, it's better to have no impact than to have a negative impact. So do you think Caballero should have got the nod for this game?
Yeah, I think so. I saw this morning that so far Kepa's made 2 errors leading to goals, and the rest of the league combined has only made 1.
Yeah.
Which is a startling stat.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, it's not particularly pleasing. I didn't really want Jamie Cummings to go out on loan. I would have given him a shot at the number 2 spot, and even the season prior wouldn't have Marcin Bolka went for free, and he's actually a very talented young keeper as well. But obviously we had to back and believe in Kepa when we paid so much for him. But yeah, I don't think it's working. I think Caballero should get the nod now.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So I'll move things on to Kunal now. I think he's got a question lined up for you.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you guys will be very glad to learn that I've decided not to go in on Kepa too much today. Not because his performance was any good last night, but it was because it was pretty much a standard Kepa performance. So there's nothing out of the ordinary at this point for me. If you are involved in a team game, so then you can only be as strong as your weakest link. Everyone says that. And this is why I think that despite all the quality that we have added to the squad, it won't make much of a difference if we don't elevate the quality between the sticks. So, however, I want to talk about another player whose place was in the team. It was under much scrutiny at the start of the season, Andreas Christensen. Now, I think there's a good centre-back in there somewhere. But once again, we saw the crack in his game yesterday where he perhaps made the wrong decision by dragging Mane to the ground, even when the Senegalese still had a fair bit to do. So, it's a given that we'll see Thiago Silva in the next match now. Andreas Christensen becomes the player to get a red card after Bakayoko did against Watford. So it's been a long time coming. So it's a sure, I think, that Thiago Silva will handle the centre-back situation. So Jay, do you think it's pretty much it for him as a Chelsea player, Andreas Christensen that is? Has he reached his ceiling? And should we as Chelsea fan maybe give up on him in the fact that he's probably not going to be that elite of a player who still makes a difference at such a big club? What's your thought?
I thought he was quite impressive yesterday until his rugby tackle. I think he is a decent player, and I think he's quite intelligent as well. I've said for quite a while that I'm not sure that his ability best suits the Premier League. We heard Werner talk about his debut against Brighton and having to play against White, Duncan, Duffy, and those guys are much more physically imperious and they play slightly differently. Christensen's slightly more delicate on the ball. He's a bit of a dancer. He's very intelligent. He reads the game quite well. I just think when you have a player like Mane, who, in my opinion, is one of the 10 best in the world at the moment, he's able to drag you out of position, and it doesn't really matter the level you are as a centre-back. You really do have to be truly elite to not be caught out by that at least once. And Christensen made the wrong decision and read the game poorly. I don't think Kepa helped him out by being so high up the pitch, because I can't imagine the confidence amongst the centre-backs is that high with Kepa either. So seeing him so far up the pitch is probably going to bend you out of shape slightly. But in terms of is it done at Chelsea, I don't think so. I think this season he'll still get minutes, but personally I would like to see him return back to the Bundesliga and play football for a side that I think he'll feel slightly more comfortable in. I think he feels quite a bit of pressure at Chelsea. There was a documentary that came out last season about him, how everyone at Cobham really rated him and thought he was an excellent player. And I think maybe that weight of expectation is kind of weighing on his shoulders a bit too heavily. And you saw when he was away from Chelsea, his performance level massively increased. So I think for him, he would be better off at a side where he was placed next to a physically strong and imperious defender where he can sort of play more intelligent football. He slightly reminds me of John Stones in that way.
So true, because most of the people, they will raise the physicality question with him, Andreas Christensen. But we have seen so many centre-backs who have that pairing and they complement each other well. Then you can make a lot with that sort of a player, because Christensen, I think he's the best passer in terms of defenders that we have. So, and his game reading is actually quite good, if I'm being honest here. So you can obviously do a lot with such sort of a centre-back. And if you can just find another pairing for him and complement each other, then I think it can be a very workable sort of a Premier League centre-back partnership. I think it also doesn't help when you make it big at 19, 20 years old as a centre-back who is definitely nowhere near to being peak in terms of physique. Andreas Christensen, we've seen him for quite a lot of years, but he's still 23, 24. So, obviously the time is on his side. And with that being said, I'll again pass it forward to Miz for his question.
Yeah, just before I get into my question, Jay, in regards to Christensen, again, I think all the boys, what you guys have said in regards to him having the ability in terms of passing, reading the plays, he's a really, really good defender. I think the one issue, and I want to ask this to Jay, is that he seems to always have that one lapse of concentration every match. He has that moment where he falls asleep and that's when he gets caught out. How does he sort of get out of that? What makes him fall asleep? Because I feel like Mane's run caught him napping, and as you guys all have said, that pretty much before that incident, he was quite rock solid. So what is it that sort of makes him sort of mentally drift away sometimes?
I'm not entirely sure what that is in terms of why it happens. I think, he's clearly trying to read the game, and in the Premier League, especially against top teams, sometimes you just can't read how it's going to go, because the individual talent means that things can change quite quickly. People can shoot from distance. People can make runs like Mane done yesterday that completely cut across the defence. And in fairness to Jordan Henderson, I think he's an excellent footballer, but you don't often expect him to make a pass quite so perfect. And that will affect your reading of a game. In terms of fixing it, I think Christensen would be a player that would benefit from the comfort of a good system. You see with Liverpool, a prime example, that certain players who individually aren't quite so strong, when they're put in a certain system, they can be covered for. And if he were to go, I still think he should go back to Mönchengladbach in Germany. Marco Rose is there, he's a great coach, and the system there would work and allow him to be covered, and you sort of work all as one unit within that system, and I think that would eliminate some of the flaws he has. I think we all like Lampard, but we know that at the moment he's not a top level coach, and the system is maybe growing and under development, but we still don't really know what we're doing there. And I think if he were to be under a more established coach with a sort of a realised philosophy, that might help him more so.
No, spot on. I mean, I think a lot of people are not talking about this. Fabinho's defending was top notch yesterday. And honestly, he's not really a centre back. He's more of a defensive midfielder. But the way he marshalled Werner and his pace, it's exactly what you've said, Jay, in terms of he understands the system so well under Klopp that he just knows what to do, and reads the game well. So on to the next question, Jay. Should Timo Werner start taking penalties? I mean, we saw what happened yesterday, and this is no disrespect to Jorginho. He's been getting all the penalties in for us most of the time. I think yesterday was the second time ever, I think, for Chelsea. I think first time he missed one back in a penalty shootout, I believe.
And against Manchester City, yeah.
Against Manchester City, and yesterday was the second time. But do you feel, Jay, probably down the track, someone like Timo Werner, who we've bought to score loads of goals, could benefit? And we know that he's got a very good technique on taking penalties. I was just watching All or Nothing for Spurs, and I'm up to that situation where Leipzig was playing Spurs. Timo Werner's penalty is the one that goes in, and his technique is fantastic. So do you think it would be beneficial to perhaps giving it to Timo Werner and him just banging in goals after goals after goals?
Yeah, 100%. I think Timo should be taking penalties. I'd also give Kai the chance to take a few as well, just to get the ball rolling, because that sort of breeds confidence. Getting your first goal in is really useful. I think Werner wasn't just brought in for goals; he was brought in to change the dynamic in the way we attack. But if he were to take penalties, I think that'd be really quite useful. Jorginho typically is a really good penalty taker, and it's understandable that he takes them. But I would quite like to see Werner just grab the ball and say it's going to be his, like Barkley did. I'm a bit of a fan of, if you win the penalty, you should be allowed to take it if you choose to. But obviously it's different at each club. But I think Werner's probably going to win quite a few penalties this year, because his speed and ability to change direction.
1, 2, and 2. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 and 2 already. 2 and 2.
Yeah, so, and he should be taking those if he wins them, I think.
And it sucks. I've got him in my fantasy Premier League team, and I missed out on an assist. And he was my captain as well, so bummer. Just before I go to Amir again, just on that Jorginho technique, I want to touch on this a little bit, in the sense that Alisson, unlike all the other keepers that we've seen who face up against Jorginho's got this technique that he skips and he waits for the keepers to go first, and then he goes the other way. The issue with that is, if a keeper waits as long as he does and they go after him, his shot has no power. And we've seen that Alisson very, very easily saved that penalty. What's your thought about moving forward, do you think more keepers will be trying to emulate that style of Alisson and wait as long as possible to diffuse that style from Jorginho?
I honestly can't believe it's taken this long for someone to save his penalties. It's just all it is. He's playing a game of chicken with the goalkeeper, and when you play, when you play against Liverpool, who are one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the world, and you play against Alisson, who is one of the top 5 keepers in the world, he's got the confidence to wait it out, because Jorginho is a good player, but I think he's been slightly underwhelming at Chelsea. His penalty technique is really quite obvious. He does it every time. He just changes sides. And Alisson's got the confidence because of the system he's in, the things that he's won recently, and the players around him to just wait it out. And equally, they had a 2-goal advantage at the time. So, even if he does concede, which is, you're not always expected to save the penalty as a goalkeeper. I think it's much more in the taker's domain to score. I think he was just willing to wait it out and give it a chance at diving late. And that he puts no power on his penalty, so you can afford to dive a little later. With the reflexes he's got and the speed at getting down low, I don't really think it was that much of a challenge. And yeah, I do think people are gonna catch on. I much prefer the Lampard or David Luiz style penalty.
Yeah,
smash it, just
blast the hell out of it.
Yeah, right down the middle, just batter it. Yeah, that's better for me.
Did you feel yesterday, for some reason, I don't know, I felt it, that Jorginho was going to miss? Did you have this feeling just before he was taking the penalty, man, this is going to be a miss?
No, I didn't. I just didn't have any confidence really going into the game. There's a lot of optimism around the club, but I've tried to say on social media that we aren't ready this year just because you have a lot of good parts, a lot of useful players now. It really does take time. Whereas you look at Liverpool are a fully, ready beast to take on any team. So we're still a way off, and I didn't expect to win yesterday. I expect whoever's taking the penalty to score it, because that's a golden opportunity, really. But just the way the game was going, it wasn't our day. So I think I can totally see where you're coming from in terms of him not scoring that pen, because sort of everything went wrong.
Yeah, fair enough. Amir, off to you, my man.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly on that thing. It just wasn't our day, right? Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and despite that, I think we put in a decent showing, I think, and our defensive structure was pretty good. And I'll just get straight into the question. Even the Brighton game, I think they had to They had to take a long shot from Trossard to finally break our defense. And it's been interesting that last season it was so easy to get through our defense, but this season we make the opposition work, right? We're so much more stable, and the opposition have to work to break down our defense. We could see the first goal. The first goal was Mane scored. It wasn't easy, right? It was because Liverpool have such classy players and such good movement off the ball that they were able to get that goal. So I think that we're finally making teams work hard. I think one of the issues, of course, is Kepa. He was at fault for the Trossard goal. He was at fault for the second goal yesterday as well. But apart from that, I think we've been fairly solid. And how much do you think of an improvement that is from last season?
I actually thought defensively we were quite good last season. On average, we were conceding less shots than Liverpool per 90 minutes. It just happened to be the goalkeeper was so poor. We're half of a defence away from the starting lineup because Chilwell and Thiago Silva aren't playing. I think Zuma's definitely got to start, and I think Reece James is deserving of a start as well. I would be quite happy occasionally to see Aspi as a centre back, because I think he's a really intelligent centre back. But you can't take away from Mane's goal. It was a really classy goal, very smart. I don't think there's many defenders or goalkeepers stopping it. In terms of defensive solidity, we're still conceding every game we've played. Unfortunately, that is a result of Kepa being poor more so than the defence being weak. But I think it will be a real test when we come up against teams like Burnley that play two up front, and we can see how the defence is managed there when they're sort of getting bullied around. But yeah, I'm not too worried about our defence or our attack. I'm more concerned about how we're going to find people like Timo Werner, or I think we drastically miss someone like Ziyech in a game like today. I think if you have Ziyech, Pulisic and Timo Werner, I think the game is totally different. Because the main thing that was crying out to me yesterday, it wasn't defensive weakness. I thought we were quite solid. I was impressed with Reece James. I thought he was very strong. I just I think that it's so frustrating that Werner's making these runs and no one's able to find that pass. There were countless times when Alonso could have played that pass round, and he did sometimes, but he could have done it 2-3 times the amount he'd done. And if you have, Ziyech and Pulisic on the pitch as well, I think we're unlocking doors left, right, and centre. And I think that's the main issue that teams will have to deal with when we're fully up and rolling. Unfortunately for us, we're going to have to take this setback because players are coming in, still in training, still injured, or in the case of Mendy, haven't been announced or
joined the club yet.
But I think our after Christmas campaign will be very strong. I think we're going to really cause teams serious trouble.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Completely agree with you there. Quickly, just before I hand things off to Kudal, how impressed are you with our defensive setup from corners? Because I think that was pretty good both the games, and Zuma's been excellent at winning those headers. We've seen last season that he was always good at winning headers, right? He's so tall, he's strong, he's just a monster. But then he's timing his aerial duels particularly well, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think what I would like to hope is that Lampard's realised with Zuma, or some of the coaches have realised that he's not a ball player, but what he is he's an exceptionally good tackler and he's a physical presence. And if you allow him to play to his strengths, which is why I think he's partnered with Christensen, then all he needs to do is be that physical presence at the back. And when he's doing that, he's really quite good. I think he could play at most teams in Europe when he's on that form, because he's a very confident tackler. He's much quicker than people give him credit for. He's very, very strong. And in the air, there's not too many better. So I'm perfectly happy with Zuma being our centre-back throughout the season. And, I think he deserves the chance as well because of his performances throughout his Chelsea career and on loan have been pretty good. And, he's willing to play and he wants to play for the club, which is something that we all value, I think.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Finally, I'll move things off to Kudal then to ask the last question, I think.
I mean, I will obviously agree with you guys and with other guys who are saying that there has been a sizable improvement in the defensive structure of the team. We don't look an absolute suicide squad when facing set pieces. So I think that's a major improvement. Even though we lost, it could have been easily a draw. Our team of 10 men was able to contain one of the best attacks in the world pretty well, which is a great sign for me. We need to remember that we won't play teams many better than that throughout the season. Yeah. My focus, however, is on this rather intriguing Mason Mount situation, Jay. I just saw a nice argument a few days back with the way that Lampard is willing to, chuck his boy in the squad without caring for his best position. There is a big chance that Mason Mount will end up being the destroyer of Lampard at Chelsea or vice versa. I mean, people are obviously going overboard there, but I still see the reason why they are worried about that. They see that Mason Mount will be the end of Lampard at Chelsea or vice versa. Maybe Lampard ends Mason Mount career by throwing him to the Sharks. We are seeing the heads obviously turn in the other direction when it comes to Mount. People are thinking about the fact that he's been given that favoritism and whatnot. My question to you is, considering Mount is one of Frank's more trusted player and one of the most used player even in the last season, and seems like the trend will continue with this season, which player do you expect to be sacrificed to the bench if either Ziyech or Pulisic they come back, which seems like a matter of week or two? I mean, if we are going with the notion that Mount is going to be involved pretty much week in, week out unless he's being rested. So which player from the current squad who is starting do you see being shifted to the bench? Because Ziyech and Pulisic, we need them, definitely. Because we pretty much play without any wingers at this point. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's a really tough one. I do think Mount is going to get less minutes this season. I think, last season I called him Chelsea's penknife. He's our utility man and he's able to cover quite well most places where other players are just not able to do that. I think for me, I really like the idea of Havertz as a false nine. I spoke to Miz about that months ago on his channel. But in terms of players being dropped, I think we're going to play a 4-3-3. I think it would be. I think typically you'd expect Werner, Pulisic, and Ziyech out on the right, with Havertz, Kante, and Kovacic in the midfield three. I think that would be my preferred choice. So I think Mount will actually drop out because every time Kovacic plays, we all understand why he's so good and why he's so important. You know, I think it will take a bit of time for Havertz to really bed into the squad, but the money you pay and the potential he has, he's bound to start. So I think Mount will have to relegate himself to the bench in the same way Tammy has, because, you know, Tammy had a very impressive season last season, and he's an excellent young player, and he put up a brilliant XG and also got a lot of goals in the Premier League himself, and he, you know, in fairness, him probably warrants starting at a top club, and he's had to take a position on the bench. And I think Mount, even though he's very trusted, I think he won't get quite as many minutes. If I had to pick someone that I think is going to be taken out, I think Kovacic would probably drop out for Mount. Not that I agree with that. I think Kovacic is very useful to have. But I think that would probably be the person that gets taken out for Mount to play if we were to play with two attacking sort of eights in the midfield.
I'll have to agree. And I mean, the situation is only going to get more tougher if Lampard actually ends up getting Rice as well. I mean, obviously not the same sort of player, Mount and Rice, but you can only have so much midfielders in a team. So I think from that, in that motion, Mount is sort of a player who will just provide a bit in every sort of a department. And that is why he's such a nice squad player to have. Because you definitely cannot have a squad full of 25 world-class players, because that's just not a stable thing. The players who are world-class would obviously want to start. But the problem is that not only is Lampard starting Mount, he's starting in the position where he's bound to get criticism, because he's not a particularly skillful player, not a pacey guy, or he's not going to, flash his way past the fullbacks. So I think in a way, I don't want to say this, but like in a fraction, the system is setting Mount up for failure at this point, because if he's, playing in the wings, I think it will be a really tough season to go ahead. But I think, eventually the stable team will get stable. And as we get the final 11 that Lampard wants to go with, I think we'll see players in their preferred position and their strengthful position as well. So with that said, I think it's pretty much, I'll lend it to Miz to, do the proceedings, the final proceedings of the video. It's been a great video. Yeah.
Thank you, man. Look, I think this whole topic about Mason Mount, and as much as I think, Jay, you're right about perhaps Kovacic, it does make sense for him to play, but there's a notion in social media that seems like Mason Mount is probably going to be opted or tipped to play more than Kovacic. But it's a good talking point to perhaps look into further down the track, and I'm sure we'll have more discussions about it. But yeah, Jay, before we go, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for participating in all these brilliant talking points. Of course, I'll have all your descriptions and all the stuff that you guys have been doing in SW6. You're the co-owner of that particular publication, which is doing fantastic. I see so much quality stuff that's coming out, and that will all be in the description. Before I go, I'll give you a bit of time to take your shine for the moment.
Thank you. I won't, you obviously mentioned SW6, I won't mention that, but I'd really appreciate if everyone sort of likes and subscribes to this channel, because you guys have been working really hard. I see you all over social media, and obviously Miz, you've helped me and myself grow my platform from a couple hundred followers to a few thousand now, so I really appreciate it, and I hope that you guys get the success that you all deserve.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, man. Look, Jay, at the end of the day, whether I'd help or not, you were always going to the top, just like Harry Redknapp said to Frank Lampard. You were always going to go to the top.
Thank you.
But with that said, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, smash the like button, because it helps us out a lot. And since you've already seen this whole episode, I'm hoping you have. Please subscribe. Don't leave without subscribing. Hit the bell notification. And just as a reminder, we are always going to be uploading every Tuesday and every Friday from now on. So please look out for that. This episode obviously happened on Monday, which will be up tomorrow. We'll do another recording on Thursday, which will be up on Friday. So guys, tune in for that. Until next time, see ya.